Thank you, Jaspreet and Auden, for such a moving depiction of Equiverse. I just loved it, and I hope everyone else enjoyed it too. I would also like to thank Rabia and Ipsita for setting the stage. Now it's my absolute honor to introduce Mrs. Rebecca Grynspan, the Secretary General of United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD as we know, and our keynote speaker for today. Mrs. Grynspan started her current role on September 13th of this year, and she's the first woman to hold this position in the history of the organization. She's an economist from Costa Rica and has been recognized as one of the top 50 leading intellectuals in Latin America. Well, she has many firsts tagged with her name. Her list of achievements is so long that I could take up the full session just talking about how she has created history over last many decades. Her detailed bio is available for you to see on the platform. Mrs. Greenspan's story is so befitting to the topic of her address. Her story made history. Friends, as we listen to Rebecca Grynspan, please also use this platform as an opportunity to ask your questions. We'll have some time in the end, and I would like to request Ipsita Kathuria, founder and CEO TalentNomics India, to come join us as we begin the Q&A. Mrs. Rebecca Grynspan, a warm welcome to our 6th International Conference, and we are truly humbled and delighted that you are here. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Nikita. I am so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Sita, for this opportunity to be with you in the TalentNomics Conference 2021. Really is a pleasure to meet you all, and thank you for all of you that are with us today. I've been asked to share a little bit of my story and my journey up to UNCTAD today. And I wanted to start, telling you that I am the daughter of an immigrant family. And this is very important to say today because we have this discussion about immigration, and there is so many bad things attached to that word, while really in my experience, when you go to a country where you are given opportunities, where you are treated with respect, all what most of these families want is only to make a good living and to their families. And that's what happened with me and my 3 sisters. Yes, my parents came to Costa Rica, and there they found a country that allowed them, even as immigrants, to really have education for their kids, to make their living with dignity, to be respected. And these 3 girls went to school, went to high school, went to university, and we were able to educate ourselves and have the project of life that we wanted. Yes, so that's my first part here, is that being the first generation born in Costa Rica, I was able to get to the highest level of government because there were opportunities, because rights were respected, because there was the possibility to go through education. And so your personal effort was matched with the framework of respect and opportunities that the country was able to give us. Yes, we don't come from a family name. We don't come from a family that has been long there. We just were good people that wanted to make, a difference in Costa Rica's life and return to the people so much that they have given us. Yes, and I think that today it is important to remember that, because we see so much suffering in so many people, and because of climate change, because of lack of opportunities. And I think that we have to remember that we have to fight for those rights for other people too. So I told you that we were 3 girls at home, 3 daughters. And it's interesting that although my father was a man of his times, yes, my mother didn't work. She stayed at home with her family, but at the end, he was able to infuse in us, and together with my mother, the sense that we were able to do whatever we dreamt of, our dreams were. Yes, I never felt as a kid that I couldn't do something, that because I was a girl, I was not able to perform or to fight or to compete or to allow myself to go higher in whatever I wanted to do. And I think that that's a very important thing. At the end, your family, your household, your environment also will determine what your aspirations are. And the possibility to infuse in girls the idea that they can really shape their project of life. That is not that the life will play with them. They will be like a leaf in the wind, you know, that where you land depend also on what you aspire for. And I think that that was also a very important part of my upbringing. Yes, and so that took me, you know, to the university, to my aspiration to be a professional. I planned, you know, my plans were to work at the university, to be a professor, to be a researcher. Life took me also to politics. And I will tell you a little bit about that, yes. But one important thing maybe to say here, Ipsita, also, is that when I was young, I was part of a youth organization. And that was a very important part of my formation too, because in the youth organization, I had leadership roles very early. Yes, and I think that that is very important, how we can provide to also our girls and our young women the possibility to exert the leadership, to be in a position where you harness those abilities. And I ask myself, where are the places today for women to be able to exert it, or to develop those abilities as leaders? And I think that in school, in high school, in the youth places, we need to provide also the opportunity for you to know if you like to be there, if you have the abilities to be there, and develop those abilities too. So let me go to the point of my entering politics. You know, I came to Costa Rica with my studies. I went to make a postgrad in England, and when I came back, I was given the opportunity to work for the government as an advisor to the minister of the presidency at the time. And I was offered already a very high position in government as a vice minister of finance at the beginning of my career. And I rejected that at that moment because I was pregnant with my second child. And I was, you know, during the period that they gave me that opportunity, that they asked me to go to the finance ministers, I was like 4 months to go in my pregnancy. So I knew that it would be very difficult to be there for until the end of the government because I couldn't make it. And it was hard to say no, you know, and that's something that we are many times, in that situation, we are many times, yes, where the trade-offs come to us very strongly. Well, I had my second child, and the party I was part of won the elections. And so I was offered that position again. And I have to tell you this story, Ipsita, because it's very, it tells a lot, because I had a newborn child. Yes, the elections were after my child was born, so he was 2 months old when the government made the announcement. And at that moment, I said yes, yeah. And so the president-to-be asked me to go to this position. And at the beginning, I told him, you know, I can't, I am breastfeeding. Yeah. And so he asked me, for how long do I breastfeed? And I said, well, at least 6 months. And so he said, we will wait for you. And this is important also, because if he would say, well, we cannot take you, I couldn't have the career that I had in politics. And they were flexible enough to say, no, we will wait for you. The funny story is that when he announced the government, my child was 2 months old. And so he announced the whole cabinet. And he said, well, Rebeca Grynspan will be the Vice Minister of Finance, but she's not taking the position right now because she has a 2-year son that she's breastfeeding. My son was 2 months old. And so, you can imagine, the comments that were afterwards. And I came to the president at that time, that was Oscar Arias, and I told him, only a man can make that mistake. No woman will make that mistake. And well, I went into government. I was Vice Minister of Finance for 2 years. It was a very difficult time. It was the 80s. Latin America was going through the major crisis, what we call the lost decade. Because we went into a debt crisis. Costa Rica defaulted after Mexico, and then other countries came afterwards. We were in the midst of the crisis. Poverty was going up, and we wanted to reestablish the services, education, and health. It was a very difficult period and a very intense period. So I had very young children, yes. I had a daughter, 3 years old from my son, and I had a very, very small children. So after 2 years of being in government, I quit it because, it was so crazy for me and so difficult to take all those tasks at the same time. And I recognized that openly. I said, I cannot anymore. I have to go because, I cannot make everything at the same time. And Nikita, I became a feminist in that moment because I realized that it's not, the road to travel is not alone. That is not that you can solve your problems alone, that it takes a community, it takes a society, that society was not ready to reconcile work and family, that it was not only my fight, that it was the fight, it was a collective fight. It was a fight of all women in this world, that we didn't have the conditions in society, not only at home. It was not only the discussion or the agreements, the division of responsibilities with my husband. It was also society at large, that you need the 3 points. You need the household, but you need society too. And I realized that I had to let go my syndrome of superwoman, to be the best mother, to be the best worker, to be the best vice minister, and try to do that all at the same time. And I think that this is very important. We want to be only, a person that is able to have, the loved ones, your family, if you want to have one, a career, if you want to have one, and that the cycle of your family, the cycle of life for many of the young women, and I feel for the young women also today, because I know that many of them continue to have that trade-offs in front of them. So what one of the lessons, apart from understanding that this was a collective fight, that the road to I like very much how you put it in this conference, to have an Equiverse, not only a universe, but an Equiverse, was a collective struggle that we needed to unite. We needed, to push for a better world together, that we were not alone, that there were many women out there that were going through the same thing. And when I went of government, I continued to work on the government as an advisor to the president, but I really reflected a lot about what my experience and the need, yes, to help other women when I would be able to, and to do much more in that sense, that it was not only to allow me to get wherever I wanted, but all women to be able to fulfill their dreams, yes. And when I quitted from my vice ministerial job, I did it thinking that maybe I wouldn't have another opportunity. Yes, I didn't know. So when I was offered to accompany the president to be of Costa Rica in the formula to be the vice president, it was an elected post. Yes. I thought this is an opportunity to help other women. Yes. And since then, I have been committed to the equality agenda. I think that is important to tell young women that when we have to make these decisions, yes, that life is not linear. It's not that you won't have setbacks and backs and forth in your life. You will have to take many decisions. My only message there is, don't give up your dreams, because despite life not being linear, you can still try to shape, your project of life, learning in the journey and learning with others. Yes, trying to get the support from others and trying to give your support to others. So I really think that was my main lesson during this journey. You need to come together, you need to help each other, and you need to push for a better world. Yes. And from government, I came to the UN, and I continue to have that as my main pillar in life. Let me tell you that my kids came out very well, despite my intense life. They are wonderful kids. So let's try really to make the conditions right for everybody to make it. Maybe my last point here, Ipsita, is that when I think about this century and what we are going through, these are very difficult times, and I think that there will be a lot of things that will happen during this century that will shape the world to come. But if you ask me, probably gender equality is the most it will give this century the character.
you.
The
Thank you.
character of this century will be defined, but how much we will be able to travel on the gender equality agenda. And so it's more important than ever that equality will be in the center of our.
Thank you, Rebecca. That was absolutely an inspiring story for me and for all our listeners, I'm sure. And thank you again for the honor of being the keynote address for us. And what an amazing journey you've had, and and so many learnings for all of us. Opportunity by parents to allow you to dream. Your own resilience to come through with it, and the fact that, as you said, life is not linear, especially for women. It is not linear, but it all falls back together. So thank you for that very inspiring story of yours, and it has given us a lot of lessons. We have a few questions from the audience, and I'll start with the first one, Rebecca. So now that you've taken over as the head of UNCTAD, what role do you think trade policy can play in building an equitable world, especially post this era of COVID, pandemic, and all the downturns that has happened for women in terms of employment?
Yes, I really think that one of the things that I would like to do in UNCTAD is engendering trade, investment, science and technology, the digital economy, because the gaps in all these areas are so wide. And UNCTAD is on the center of this agenda, yes? Is a very hard agenda in the economic field, yes? And I think that it's very important that we will think about the differentiated impact that many of the policy measures that are being, or the political decisions that are being taken on trade, on investment, on science and technology, on the digital economy, because they will have differentiated impact, and they can bring us to a more unequal world or to a more equal world. So what is the policy agenda that we need to put forward for it to be more equal? And I think that is something that I will have to take on in the agenda of UNCTAD. That will be very important.
Very rightly said. I think one thing that said is being gender blind is not gender equal. So the policy agenda have to take that into account as you go forward. One more questions I think we can take. Nikita is already back, so she's telling us we have probably just a minute. So as per you, what are the key drivers of building a gender equal world? Is it culture? Is it leadership? Is it policies? And where does one start?
It's a difficult question, actually, because I really think, Ipsita, that there have to be, we have to enter to the gender issue that is multidimensional from the different doors. The most important part will be if we get to the same place. If you go in through culture, if you go in through policy, if you go in through leadership, we have to get to the same place. So we need to have a coherent agenda, but many different groups and women will, and men, I hope men, will enter through different doors. The important thing is to share the same space in terms of our objective. Yes. And I think that we need to provide a platform for that to happen, for people entering through the many dimensions that conform gender equality. But let me tell you one thing that is very important. We should not forget culture, because really, that is a very, as we know, important factor, because really gender equality is a revolution in all the aspects of your life. It touches, the most intimate feelings of people, of men and women, of the families. You know, is your kitchen, is your dorm, yes, it's your kids, it's your feelings, you know. So it is a very, you know, it's an educational process, yes, because it's a transformative one, probably the most transformative process we can go through, yes. So we need to take that into account, that it's not an easy thing because it has to transform the individual and all individuals,
that's what we're talking about
and
with
women alike.
So that we all come together to make this happen, the men and the women and everybody around. So thank you so much, Rebecca. I think we are out of time. I can see Nikita nodding her head there. So again, thank you so very much for being here with us and for sharing your journey and your candid lessons. Very, very inspiring. And I would like to, you know, hand it over to Nikita here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, both of you. Very inspiring indeed. Thank you so much, Mrs. Rebeca Grynspan, for launching the conference on such an inspiring note. I wanted this discussion to go on, but as MC, my hands are tied. I have to stick to the time. Thanks again to you, Ipsita, for moderating the Q&A. Thank you to all our participants. Let's tune in to our next session, which is Future of Work, and Anish will be with you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Rebecca.